It's the 15th of September 2012. I'm Gary King, reporting for TersaMillennia.tv, and we're back here at Hackpen Hill to bring you an update on some of the information which has been revealed from subsequent analysis into this design. As you can see behind me, the formation has now been cut out by the farmer, and the field contains haystacks of straw that have all been baled up very neatly. The formation itself has now been reduced to a stubble, but it's still clearly visible. In my last report, some of you may remember that there was a thin line in the outside ring towards the edges of the formation. And looking at the overhead, we can see that there were in fact two of these lines. When I see these types of subtle features inside crop circles, I always ask myself the same question. Has this been placed there for purely aesthetic reasons, or does it contain some kind of hidden message in the geometry? A few days after the formation appeared, researcher Bert Janssen had solved it. He posted this diagram on Crop Circle Connector that showed that this formation did in fact contain some hidden geometry, and the key to it was those two thin lines. I spoke to Bert on Skype to congratulate him on his discovery and to find out more.
So Bert, thanks very much for talking to me. Congratulations, you've successfully decoded another formation. You've done this so many times. Tell me about it. Hackpen Hill. Tell me about what your findings were.
You see, Hackpen Hill is a very special place actually for me. In 1999 there was a formation there, and that was kind of with spirals and its semicircles, and nobody could crack the code of that. And that was one of the very first ones that I thought I have to look deeper into this. And so Hackpen Hill has a special place for me. When I saw this cube appearing at Hackpen Hill, I thought this is just further than just a cube. There has to be much more to it. And this little tiny little circle, this ring, that really intrigued me. And sure enough, there it was, squaring the circle.
Squaring the circle.
By following the path of those two thin lines, Bert discovered that they made a perfect circle. He then moved this circle over to the centre of the outer ring of standing wheat and inscribed a square whose corners touched the outer edge of the formation.
And this one squares the circle with perimeter, and you'd analysed the Stitchcomb formation a few weeks before, which squared the circle not only in perimeter but in area as well.
Yes, and there's lots of people who tell me, Bert, squaring the circle is actually about area, not about perimeter, which is not true at all. No. They're totally related to each other. And right now I'm writing an article which will be online hopefully in October 2013 or 12, I mean. And that will show the relationship between squaring the circle on perimeter and squaring the circle on area. You will see they're actually twin brothers. They're totally the same.
Fantastic. And that will be on your website, Crop Circles and More?
Yes, that will be on my website, and that's just very shortly from now that will be published.
Okay, so for years, Bert, I've told people that there's this hidden geometry in formations that requires smart people such as yourself to look at them and stare at them and then all of a sudden see what the richness of that hidden geometry is. And for 25, 30 years, we've had the squaring of the circle thrown at us and thrown at us. What does it mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. What does it mean? What does squaring the circle mean? I don't know yet, but I think there's much more to it than we think. Many people think it's just a trick, it's a construct that humans came up with, and that's totally true. We did come up with it. But somehow it encodes something that's much deeper than you would see actually when you look at it on the surface. And I still have not figured it out. I find it really intriguing that so many crop circles have it built in on different levels. And I have to come to the conclusion that if we ever want to crack what it's all about, then squaring the circle will be one of the major keys to that. For me, it's most interesting is the fact that we cannot construct it. So even though the crop circles, most of them we can reconstruct, we can actually redo them using compasses and a straight edge. Squaring the circle is very difficult. Actually, it's impossible. And the reason why it's impossible is because of the number pi. And I think that pi is actually the real key. So squaring the circle for me is continuously pointing at pi, pi, pi. And pi is that one little strange number that we cannot express. And I'm somehow deep inside me says something from you can, but you have just not asked the right question. Barbie Castle formation, that was actually the formation, it's called the pi formation for all kinds of good reasons. That I saw this relationship between square and the circle and pi, and the fact that there was a pathway, a public pathway going through the field, going through the formation, that exactly would form one side of the square that squares the circle in that formation. And it's that moment I thought, that's interesting, because that's a pathway we would follow. So somehow we have to follow this path. But again, on that moment, I didn't know what to do with it. So it's about asking the right questions. It's one of the things I've seen in crop circles over the years, that if I go back to old crop circles, I find new stuff that I didn't see earlier. But the crop circle itself did not change over the years. The only thing that changed is me.
Yeah.
And I'm asking other questions now.
Yes.
So it's not about the answers. They're all there.
Yeah.
It's just we are not asking the right question. And the same as the square and the circle. It's a teaser. And the teaser says from, look, guys, you have to ask the right question. And you have still not done that. So come up with the right question, and then you will have the answer.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about asking good questions. I couldn't agree more with you.
Yes.
Bert, thanks very much for joining me.
Okay.
So the question is, why? For the past 30 years or so have the crop circles been providing us with very clever solutions to this ancient problem of squaring the circle. I've discovered that the first recorded incident of attempts to square a circle can be found in the Rind Papyrus, which dates back to around 1800 BC. In ancient Greece, it is well known that this puzzle was commonplace amongst all the great philosopher-mathematicians. And in 1505, it is also well known that Leonardo da Vinci worked on a solution to squaring the circle, the very same year that he was studying the flight of birds and designed flying machines. By 1775, the pursuit had become so widespread that the Academy of France refused to consider any more attempts from circle squarers. At the same time, the mathematician De Morgan suggested that these circle squarers suffered from a mental illness, which he called deadly circle measuring. I'm really curious to know why this impossible puzzle has fascinated so many people for such a long period of time. Another interesting fact that turned up in my research is about one of Wiltshire's most famous ancient monuments, Stonehenge. Thousands of visitors flock here each year, drawn by its many mysteries. But as I discovered, what seems to be missing from any guidebooks is the fact that underlying its construction is a solution that once again squares the circle. In this reconstructed diagram, where all the missing stones have been replaced, a square drawn around the inner circle and a circle drawn around the circumference of the outer ring makes the square's perimeter equal to the circle's circumference. The modern-day pioneer of the squared circle was, of course, the late John Michell. John's lifelong research into squaring the circle led him to discover an amazing fact about our own planet Earth's relationship to the Moon. What John discovered was that the relative sizes of the Earth and the Moon are in a ratio of 11:3. So by drawing a square around the Earth, then using the Earth and Moon's combined radius to draw a circle, the square's perimeter is again equal to the circle's circumference. Over the years, my own research into this subject of squaring the circle has proved to be a rabbit hole that just gets deeper and deeper. And I agree with Bert Jansen. What we need right now are much better questions. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this report. I'm Gary King, reporting for TersaMillennia.tv from Wiltshire, England, with a continuing mystery of the crop circles.